It all started when my husband and I received a formal, beautifully printed wedding invitation from my younger brother, Tyler. He was finally getting married to his longtime fiancée, Sarah, after nearly 5 years together. Before starting the video, please like the video and tell us where are you watching from. The invitation was lavish, with golden embossing and their initials twirled into a regal monogram at the top. We were excited not just as guests, but as contributors. You see, my family doesn't have a tradition of splurging on weddings. So when Tyler mentioned that he was short on funds, we didn't hesitate to offer financial help. I remember the exact conversation. He called me late one night and said, "Look, we're trying to make this special, and I hate to ask, but would you be willing to help us cover some of the venue costs?" My husband and I talked it over and agreed to send him $65,000. It was a huge amount for us, nearly a third of our savings, but we believed we were helping family. There was no formal contract or loan agreement, just trust. He was my brother, after all. I wired the money the next morning. He thanked us profusely, called us a blessing, and even told our parents how grateful he was. For a few weeks, everything seemed fine. We heard updates about the dress fittings, the floral arrangements, and the guest list. Then one day, I got a short text from him. "Hey, can we talk?" That's when everything started falling apart. He didn't call me that evening, so I called him. No answer. The next day, I got a short message from Sarah instead, saying they were reevaluating the guest list due to venue limitations. I thought it was odd, considering I had already helped pay for the venue, and Tyler had assured me it could accommodate over 200 guests. I brushed it off, thinking maybe it was a miscommunication. A few days later, we got a generic email from a wedding planner stating that due to unforeseen constraints, our invitation was being withdrawn. That was a no personal message. No apology, no explanation. I was stunned. My husband stared at the screen in disbelief and asked, "Is this a joke?" I immediately called my brother. No response. I texted him, emailed him, even reached out to our mom to ask if she knew what was going on. She said Tyler had told her we had backed out of attending and they had decided to reallocate the budget. I was speechless. Not only were we being uninvited from the wedding we helped pay for, but now we were being painted as the ones who walked away. The betrayal stung worse than anything I'd felt in years. It wasn't just the money, it was the principle. He lied, manipulated the situation, and now he was hiding behind silence. I decided I wouldn't let this go quietly. The next day, I contacted my bank to see if there was any way to reverse the wire transfer, but it had been over a month. The representative sympathetically told me that unless there was proven fraud, there was nothing they could do. My husband suggested we contact a lawyer, but I wanted to give Tyler one more chance to explain himself. I sent him a long message, not angry, but direct. "Tyler, we gave you $65,000 because we believed in your future. I don't care about the wedding, but I deserve honesty. What's going on?" No reply, not even a read receipt. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing with questions. Did he plan this from the start? Was Sarah behind this decision? Did they just use us? I scrolled through our old messages and found all the promises, the excitement, the gratitude, and it all felt fake. Every emoji, every exclamation mark felt like a mask. I felt sick to my stomach. The next morning, I got a call not from Tyler, but from my mother. Her voice was hesitant, almost rehearsed. She said, "Sweetheart, I think you need to let this go. It's causing tension in the family." That's when I knew he had spun a narrative, one where we were the problem. My own family was starting to see me as the villain for wanting accountability. I decided I had to act, not just emotionally, but legally. We found a family law attorney with experience in financial disputes between relatives. I gathered every message, every bank record, and every digital conversation I had with Tyler. The lawyer said the lack of a written agreement made the case more difficult, but the nature of the communication implied an informal contract. The legal term was promissory estoppel, when someone makes a promise you rely on, and you suffer a loss as a result. The attorney sent a formal letter to Tyler demanding either the money be returned or legal proceedings would begin. We gave him 10 days to respond. During that time, my parents called repeatedly, urging us to not escalate things. My dad said, "Do you really want to go to court over this and ruin your relationship forever?" But what relationship was left? The one where my brother took our money and cut us out of the biggest moment of his life, where our parents defended him despite knowing what he'd done. On the 7th day, Tyler responded not with an apology, but through his own lawyer. The response claimed that the money was a wedding gift and not subject to repayment. I was furious. A gift? Who gifts $65,000 and gets ghosted in return? I felt like screaming. My attorney said we could fight it, but it would be long, costly, and emotionally draining. I was already emotionally drained. Despite the risks, we decided to move forward with legal action. I couldn't let him get away with rewriting the story. Depositions were scheduled, and Tyler was forced to answer under oath. It was the first time I saw him in months, and he looked different, tense, nervous, unsure. He claimed he had assumed we wouldn't attend, that our donation was voluntary, and that his fiancée had been uncomfortable with our involvement. When asked why we weren't told personally, he shifted blame onto Sarah. She handled the guest list, he said. My lawyer asked him if he'd told anyone that we backed out. He hesitated. "I may have," he mumbled. Piece by piece, the lies started unraveling. We submitted emails, texts, voice messages, everything that proved we had never declined the invitation. We had been erased. My attorney said we had a real shot at getting a partial repayment, if not all. The judge scheduled a hearing, and through all of this, my parents remained distant. My mother would occasionally text things like, "I hope this ends soon," or "Families shouldn't fight like this," but I knew they were still attending the wedding, supporting him, taking sides. I never imagined that standing up for myself would isolate me this much. The court hearing was set for a rainy Thursday morning. I arrived early with my husband and attorney, documents in hand, nerves stretched thin. Tyler showed up 15 minutes late, dressed like he was going to brunch, not a legal proceeding. He avoided eye contact. When the judge entered, the courtroom settled into an awkward silence. The first half of the hearing was procedural evidence presentation, preliminary arguments. Then came the testimony. My lawyer laid out the timeline, the phone calls, the messages, the money transfer, and finally, the wedding disinvitation. He read aloud the text from Sarah's planner, the lack of explanation, and the abrupt cut-off. Then came the messages between Tyler and me, the warmth, the gratitude, the planning, all painting a picture of mutual trust and understanding. I glanced at Tyler during the reading. His eyes were fixed on the floor. When it was his turn to speak, his lawyer claimed the money was a heartfelt contribution and no strings attached. The judge asked him directly, "Did you ever tell your sister, in writing or in person, that this was a gift?" Tyler faltered. "Not in those words, no," he admitted. That small crack widened into a fissure. The judge requested mediation before moving to trial, giving both parties a chance to resolve things privately. We agreed, hoping Tyler would finally act like the brother I used to know. But even in that closed-door room, he refused to budge. "You're trying to humiliate me," he said, avoiding the real issue. I realized he wasn't sorry, he was just embarrassed to be caught. And that made everything worse. The mediation failed, and the judge scheduled a second hearing. As the case progressed, news began to circulate within the family. An aunt texted me, "Is it true you're suing your brother?" I didn't reply. I didn't have the energy to explain betrayal to someone who saw everything in black and white. Tyler's version of events was making the rounds, that we were trying to sabotage his wedding, that we had control issues, that the money was forced on him. None of it was true. It was easier for them to believe the cleaner lie than to confront the ugly truth that one sibling had exploited the other. On the day of the second hearing, Sarah didn't show up. Her absence spoke volumes. The judge reviewed more documentation, including a voice memo Tyler left me months before, thanking us for covering the venue. He even said, "You're literally making this dream wedding happen." That recording tilted things. The judge ruled in our favor for partial repayment. $42,000 was to be returned within 6 months. It wasn't everything, but it was justice. I expected to feel triumphant. Instead, I felt numb. The family group chat went silent. My parents didn't call. Even after winning the case, I felt like I had lost more than I had gained. The money wasn't what broke me. It was the months of silence, the denial of truth, the passive complicity of those who should have defended me. I realized that sometimes the cost of justice is loneliness, a price I had already paid in full. The wedding happened a few weeks later. We weren't invited, of course, and we didn't ask to be. Photos surfaced online, shared by cousins and friends, smiling faces, perfect lighting, a dream event. Tyler looked happy. Sarah beamed in her designer gown. Not a single trace of the chaos behind the scenes was visible. No one mentioned our absence in the captions. It was like we had never existed in their story. I closed my social media for a while. Seeing those curated moments felt like salt in a still healing wound. A few people messaged me privately, saying they were sorry for what happened, but none of them said it publicly. No one corrected the lie. No one asked for our side. That silence felt worse than betrayal. It was validation for Tyler, that he could do what he did and still be accepted, still be celebrated. My husband reminded me, it says more about them than it does about us, and he was right, but it didn't make it hurt less. I poured myself into work, into rebuilding the savings we'd lost, into reclaiming peace. Some nights I still lay awake wondering how things could have gone differently. Could I have been softer, more forgiving? But every time I asked those questions, I reminded myself, we weren't the ones who lied. We weren't the ones who cut ties without warning. We were the ones who trusted too much. And that's something I won't apologize for. Months passed, and the court-mandated payments began trickling in. Tyler made the first installment through his lawyer, with a note attached. For closure, that word rang hollow. Closure doesn't come in checks or legal terms. It comes in honesty, in accountability, in face-to-face truth. And Tyler hadn't given me any of that. My parents still refused to talk about it. Every phone call was filled with tension or forced pleasantries. How's work? How's the weather? Never, how are you really doing after all this? They wanted to move on, pretend it hadn't happened, but I couldn't. Not yet. The emotional toll had left a crater I was still crawling out of. I started therapy, something I'd avoided for years. Talking to a neutral voice helped me understand that what happened wasn't just about money. It was about broken trust, identity, and self-worth. I had built so much of my life around the idea that family came first, that family would always be there. This shattered that belief. My therapist helped me redefine the concept of family not as blood, but as those who respect, protect, and show up when it matters. That shift changed everything. I started building new circles, setting clearer boundaries, and no longer feeling guilty for protecting my peace. The final payment came a year later. No note this time, just a transfer and a confirmation email. That should have been the end of the story, but it wasn't. One afternoon, while I was at work, I got a call from my mom. Her voice cracked as she said, "I think I made a mistake." She had seen a video of Tyler talking at a family gathering, joking about how some people just can't let go of money. He was laughing. Everyone around him was laughing. She didn't find it funny. She said, "I didn't know it hurt you this much." I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure if she was apologizing or just shocked by the public disrespect. But something shifted in that moment. She finally acknowledged the pain. She said, "I wish I had stood up for you." It wasn't a full apology, but it was a start. Healing doesn't come all at once. It arrives in fragments: a phone call, a message, a realization. I told her I appreciated the honesty. We talked for an hour, not just about Tyler, but about everything we hadn't said. It didn't erase the past, but it opened a door that had been shut for too long. It reminded me that while some relationships can't be salvaged, others can still be rebuilt slowly, one honest conversation at a time. As time moved on, I stopped counting the losses and started focusing on what I'd gained: clarity, strength, boundaries. I used to think speaking up would tear my family apart, but silence would have done the same, just slower. I now understand that loyalty without accountability is just enabling. Tyler chose his path, and so did I. We haven't spoken since the court case ended, and that's okay. I don't wish him harm, but I no longer wish to carry his burden either. I've redirected my energy into helping others through similar betrayals. I started a blog anonymously at first, sharing parts of my experience. The response was overwhelming. So many people had been hurt by family, by those they trusted most. My story became a mirror for others, and in helping them, I helped myself. I still keep a printed copy of the original wedding invitation in my drawer, not out of bitterness, but as a reminder of where I've been, what I've survived, and what I will never allow again. It sits there quietly, faded and forgotten by those who sent it, but never by me, because sometimes the most painful lessons become the ones that shape us into someone stronger, wiser, and unbreakable. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you love, let this story remind you you are not alone, and you are not weak for caring. You are not foolish for trusting. What matters is how you rise after the fall. I rose slowly, piece by piece, surrounded by silence, fueled by truth. And now, I stand here not as a victim, but as someone who found strength in the wreckage. My brother may have taken the money, but he didn't take my voice. He didn't take my integrity. And he didn't break me. I've learned that family is not defined by shared bloodlines, but by shared respect. I've rebuilt my world, and in doing so, I've rediscovered myself. If you're listening, hurting, or healing, keep going. The people who tried to bury you never expected you'd grow roots, but you will, just like I did.